What's up, everybody? It's Prion Joni. So now that I've taken the DDJ-REV7 out on a gig, I'm going to share with you some of my preferences for settings and things to keep in mind. Now, these are just my personal preferences. These aren't anything that you have to take upon as a rule, just something that you could probably consider when you take your DDJ-REV7 out to your first show. But first, let's grab some music to use with the REV7 from Direct Music Service. DMS is an online database where DJs can get their music from. There's thousands of unique edits, remixes, and originals that you can choose from of your favorite tracks that you can use to rock your next dance floor. They also have an app that you can use on your mobile device where you can browse their database and then save songs so that it appears on your Dropbox when you get home. I'm going to leave you 2 discount links down below in the pinned comment if you want to subscribe. Go to directmusicservice.com today to sign up. So let's start with the platter slip sheets. I found that I really like having only one slip sheet, reducing the friction so that there's a lot more slack when I'm moving it around. Having 2 of them, there was just more friction, and I was kind of like it with just one of these in there. With that said, I also preferred the torque strength to be on high, not on low. If you want to change the torque strength, you press the back button to enter the menu, scroll to where it says torque, motor torque, and then you click the encoder and you can go low or high. You go right to go low. But I tried both and I figured that I really like it. One slip sheet, high torque, gives me the less amount of resistance, and whenever I let the top piece go, it carries on without me giving a push where it could sometimes give too much of a push. I really like having one slip, high torque. It just works really great for me. For my crossfader settings, I like to keep the feeling adjust, the tension for the crossfader, to 11 o'clock. That gives me like just the right balance where it's not moving around or bouncing around. That could, you know, like when it's all the way down, it bounces. When you're at 11, it doesn't really bounce and it prevents me from accidentally moving it. I actually tried it all the way up. It wasn't comfortable because there was a lot of friction, and I tried it all the way down and I made a couple mistakes where I would mix and like leave the crossfader open and the other track is playing and you would hear a train wreck. So 11 o'clock is kind of my sweet spot for the crossfader. Doesn't necessarily have to be yours. You might want a little more, might want a little less, or maybe you like it on the extreme ends of one or the other, but 11 is my perfect spot. For the LCD display, the display mode that I kept it on was the waveform mode. I tried the different displays and I found that keeping it on waveform mode, for me, it helped me mix because it's like having 2 DJM S11 screens. I know some folks have asked about why not the screen in the middle. This thing is really like having 2 of them right on the jogs because it shows both waveforms. The smaller waveform on one side is actually parallel and represents the opposite deck. So this one on the right is representing this deck, and the one on the smaller one on the left represents this deck. So I get my parallel waveforms for when I need it. I also keep the rotation marker, the digital one, off because it resets in Serato for every hot cue, and even if you have it lined up with the physical one, the slight bit of lag you can kind of see, and when it resets for every hot cue, they start to go offset, so I just prefer using the physical one. Now, speaking of the physical sticker, when you decide to put one on yours, make sure it lines up with a slit. Put your physical marker sticker right on the slit so that you know where it is, so when you're lining it up, it's easy. I forgot to do that. You don't have to do that, but it just makes dropping the top piece back on the platter so much easier by lining it up, because then you can see where it's at. Now, getting used to the battle style. So the configuration, the way it's laid out, is really good for people who use turntables in battle style, because that's where the start-stop button is on the turntable, and this is where the pitch slider is located, where it's horizontal on a turntable 90 degrees sideways. For me, who likes to use CDJs and controllers, it took a little bit of getting used to. And by little bit, I mean, it took me about 10 minutes to get used to starting and stopping on the side. Now, whenever I use turntables, it's usually much farther away. Having the pitch sliders closer, it's a little easier to manage. And while my hand still likes to reach on the side up here, it's not as far as when you're using turntables, because on turntables it's bigger. The pitch slider is a lot farther away. The distance here is actually more comfortable, so it doesn't really take that much to get used to the barrel style configuration on this controller because of the smaller size. Now, what I did have to get used to is not having a Q button. So what I did was, especially if I'm in another pad mode on the mixer, I kept the instant scratch pad modes on hot Q. So if I needed to click play, I'm a lot closer to tap, 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 play when I'm mixing in a song. I like to do tap, tap, tap when I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and then play and then let it go. That way, my mixer sections pad modes are free and I can use them for anything else. Because when you don't have a Q button, you just need a way to count down before you press play. The place that I was playing at Koa Cantina doesn't have a monitor. I could have brought one or hooked one up, but I decided not to because it was just, just to save room behind me. So I tried out using split queue, and to access split queue, you go back to the utility menu by pressing the back button. And where it says phones out, it's set to mono split. Click the encoder, you can switch it back to stereo. So I tried using split queue. And while it was cool about getting my beat matching on point and pretty accurate, the thing is I still like to use the headphones to hear the master. So because of that, I thought it was more important to have it in stereo than in split queue, because in an environment where I can't hear the monitor, I kind of want to hear what my master mix sounds like, what my mixing sounds like out in the master, as well as my scratching. If you've ever scratched in a room where you don't have a monitor, you tend to scratch louder because you're trying to hear it. So keep putting it in my headphones in stereo helps me hear it. When it's in split queue, it's a little difficult because I'm hearing one side and I'm hearing the acoustics of the room on the other side. So I like keeping my headphone output in normal. I actually left that at split queue because I was testing it out. Now, one last thing. In the dark, I sometimes confused my 33, 45 buttons for the pitch bend buttons. And I'm like pressing these, I'm like, why is nothing happening? And it's just muscle memory. I just have to remember the pitch bend buttons are on the left side of each deck. I did that a bunch of times. In fact, I did a really noob move where I forgot to stop the platter, put my headphones down, saw the headphones taking off, and then when I pressed stop, I missed and hit the 45 button and then it launched. So you gotta remember when a track is playing on a platter, especially if you're used to a controller or a stationary jog wheel, don't put your headphones near the platter because it could take off. So like I said, these are just my preferences. These are not rules or anything to go by. Just something to consider if you want to try it out when you start using your DDJ-REV7. Product link from Zounds is down below. They have one of the best payment plan programs you can find online. One of the easiest 0% interest that you can qualify for. And if you want to find out what I learned about using the DDJ-REV7 with the new Serato DJ 2.5.9, the version that is compatible with the REV7, if you're using an older computer, you want to check this video out. Also, check out my full demo on the REV7 over here. And if you want to see a performance on it, check this video over here. Really appreciate you for watching. Thanks. Take care. The force is with you always.